when you say the back end of war, you're talking about, it sounds good whenever you're on television to talk about how this country did something. However, what that truly means is people's lives are about ready to be changed, because there's people who are there who are going to fight, and there's people who are going to be sent there to do that fighting.
I overcame. I started to get some wins. Make sure you listen. Knucklehead Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of Knucklehead Podcast. You got with you today the Knucklehead Steven and
Mike Barker.
Mike Barker, I love it. So welcome to the show, Mike. Listen, if you're listening to this, two things. One, you found us because you found yourself wishing that you had done something differently than what you, making some different choices, or you know what, you're curious. You're wanting to know why. What's this podcast all about? You got a couple veterans together, a couple folks who've been in the military before, who served. For sure. Mike's, I'm not going to sit here and try to tout like we've helped as many people as he has. My goodness gracious. He runs a nonprofit in San Antonio in an area where he served almost a decade at a burn unit, right? Is that right?
No, I worked in outpatient physical therapy, so outpatient orthopedics for, I worked with, polytrauma from, wartime injuries. Okay. So, amputees, guys, I worked on the limb salvage team, so guys that were, injured, trying to save their leg from being amputated, worked with those guys. A lot of guys that had, traumatic brain injuries. I worked at the Center for the Intrepid, so it was all amputees. Very diverse background in medical for rehab. And I was at BAMC before there was even a Center for the Intrepid. So, wow.
Well, so for those of you who are listening and you're connected to the military, you understand kind of the gravity associated with the lives that you were helping. Sure. I think it's important to essentially put a disclaimer out there that we're talking to you as a business owner, you as a revenue generator, you as building a team in a community. The reason why we have Mike on the show, not only because of that incredible experience, but it's because he understands probably more intimately than most is that everybody screws up, but in spite of that screw up, they're capable of accomplishing some incredible things.
For sure.
No. You've connected with the cause. For sure. Of wanting to help people. Right. You've connected with the cause that the path to truly help them, sometimes it's on gravel roads. It's a little bit of windy roads. And you gotta. Yeah. We were just mixing it up a little bit with somebody who you've known for quite some time. Yeah. And we're using some colorful language, right? We are military guys, right? So we cuss a little bit. So if you got your kids in the car, cover their ears for a little bit, because you may hear some four-letter words here. Just saying.
Well, and that's the thing too, is in the nonprofit space, it's still a business, but at the same time, we mess up all the time, and we try things and fail, and we sometimes just fail forward, and it's a learning curve for me too, because my background is medical, never a business owner or a nonprofit starter. So I've learned a lot of things in my 3 years of doing this as well. So
okay, so I want to stop you right there. So 3 years. Yep. 3 years. That's 36 months. Yeah. That's a long time. It's over 15. Well, what is that? 150 weeks. Yeah. So in the 150 weeks that you've been in business as a nonprofit, and the thousands and thousands of people that you've helped, how much of it has been done only by you? And how large is your organization now with volunteers? Yeah,
so, the first 2 years was strictly by myself. Filling out the paperwork, getting everything started, starting some programming, starting a baseball team with 10 guys, managing that, growing that 10 guys into baseball and softball teams, growing that 25 to 30 guys and girls into golf. And then that was all before it was even a nonprofit. I was just doing that as Mike Barker himself, who was a therapist for so many and wanted to help and give back, but didn't want to do it through really a nonprofit. So
hold on for a second. So you mean to say that coming out of the military, the way that you were trained, essentially the institution of the military, an undisciplined civilian, or even disciplined civilian for that matter, being trained and groomed to the fits a cause.
Sure.
The therapy that you're talking about, don't they have medication for something like that? Medication works on every instance, doesn't it? It's not.
Well, we're a non-medicating organization, so
Okay, all right.
we obviously do what your doctor prescribes for you, and I'm not
100%.
saying don't do what you're medically advised to do by a trained doctor, because I'm not a doctor, but at the same time, you can still come and do some of the activities that we provide, whether you take your medication or not. And a lot of the times, and one of the stories that you heard earlier is we helped someone get so active in our organization that they could stop taking their medication. So yeah, I think it's okay. I think sometimes as veterans, when we transition out, and we go to the VA and we try to get our health care, I think that a lot of times, we as veterans feel like we're going to be pain-free. Like, we're not going to hurt, and we're going to be 100% healthy like we were when we were 18, 19, 20 in the military. Well, we've rucked, we've humped, we've deployed. You're going to have nicks and pains and bumps and bruises, and we're not going to be 100% all the time, but you can still come do these activities. And yeah, it hurts a little bit, but the more you keep doing it, the less it hurts, and that's what we try to do is, keep people active continuously, so it's not one time you come out and play a sport and then we'll see you 8 weeks later or, next year or whatever, so it's continual, and that's.
So this initiative then to start taking people who've gone through this healing process,
Mm-hmm.
and getting them involved in sports. What was the genesis of that? I mean, you say you're from Alabama, right? So football's a big deal down that way. Actually,
Yeah.
sports really are a big deal in Alabama. So
Yeah.
what was it? Was it a childhood thing? You connected with sports, or what was it?
Yeah, so I grew up playing sports my whole life. I played football, basketball, baseball throughout high school, and played 2 years of college football at Northern Illinois University before I joined the Army. And taking my whole life since I was 5 playing sports. Sports for me was togetherness, bonding, teamwork, hard work, dedication. To be good at a sport, you have to have all of those kind of qualities in order to want to, go to the next level. And
Yeah.
I was a 2-sport athlete, so to speak, baseball and football, had scholarships to both in college. Chose football, which was probably one of the dumbest decisions I ever made in life because I was pretty good at baseball. And one of the high school players that was at a rival high school of mine went on to play Major League Baseball and won a World Series.
Wow.
So if we're talking about knucklehead moments, when I was 18 and choosing to decide between football and baseball, that was probably one of the first knucklehead moments I ever had in life was thinking that I, as a 6 foot, 205 pound linebacker, was going to make it to the NFL one day and chose to go college football and, bigger, faster, stronger. Once you get to the next level, my freshman year at Northern Illinois, I'll never forget, one of the starting offensive linemen for our football team, his name was Ryan Diem, and he went on to play college or professional football for the Colts and was the starting right tackle for Peyton Manning on the Indianapolis Colts. So here I am, 18, fresh out of high school, going up against this dude that ended up playing for the Indianapolis Colts my freshman year of college football. And trust me, it's
There's a little bit of a size discrepancy.
well, not only size discrepancy, but just talent,
100%.
You get to that level and you're like, wow, do I belong here? And then, I see my buddy who's playing baseball, doing well, and man, I probably should have chose baseball. But
Isn't it funny how that works?
yeah, so
It brings you full circle, knowing that first of all, you're rooting for your buddy, right?
For
You're
sure,
like, hey,
yeah.
man, you won
Yeah.
a World Series. That's
Yeah.
my buddy. I played with him, but at the same time, you're almost like, I wish I would have done something a little bit different.
Yeah.
However, but you were able to apply that love for sports
yeah,
to kind of what your next career venture was.
yeah. So my dad's retired Army,
Okay.
so I grew up military.
Did you know you were going to join the military or not?
I didn't. No, I had no clue. I thought I was going to be an athlete. I was always an athlete. Got offers to go play college football. I'm I'm going to be the next, NFL guy, that's, or, Major League Baseball player. And that was my whole track. And then I got to college, first time out of my parents', sight, and I had fun, like I didn't have to check in with anybody. I had to show up for practice, go to film, lift weights, play football, and live the college football player experience. Yeah. And I wasn't disciplined as a person at 18, 19 to go to school. 100%. I was basically playing sports.
So you went from, and the reason why I want to hover over this is following that thought process to parents that are out there, following that thought process of, I'm only going to plan for 18 years old, meaning I'm going to plan to get that scholarship, right? And that scholarship is essentially your ticket to whatever professional sport you happen to want to go to.
Yeah.
For the majority, and when I say the majority, I want to say over 90 to 95%, I think the statistics are, of people who have that as the plan, it ends up going completely awry.
For sure.
You never follow that all the way through to professional ranks where you can earn the income associated with that career path.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden what you have is you have a crisis. You have a crisis, an identity crisis, a decision-making crisis, all of those things. And so your kind of default path that you didn't know was there, something that was familiar, was the military. And then now all of a sudden you get trained up in a completely different skill set. And I'm sure that went perfectly too, didn't it?
No, not exactly. So, I had to make a decision because, I didn't have a long-term plan.
Yeah.
And, basically I moved back home with my parents who had since moved to Houston, Texas. So I was in DeKalb, Illinois. My parents were in Houston, Texas. And so I went home to Houston, Texas, and I was like, well, I went from this rock star college football life to back home with mom and dad underneath, a microscope, and where are you going, where are you going to be, when are you coming back, who are you with? Like, man, I haven't had this in a long time, so this isn't for me. So basically, I was either go to school or join the military, and I knew when I was at Northern Illinois, I was in the pre-physical therapy program, so I knew as a young adult that I wanted to do something medical. So, I went to the recruiter. They're like, yeah, we can get you this combat medic job, and I was like, that's cool. Sounds like medical. Like, all right, yeah. And then they're like, yeah, there's a follow-on program you can apply for physical therapy. I was like, cool. Like, sign me up. So I joined the military, and never had planned to. And this was in 1999, so pre 9/11. So I wasn't the post 9/11 veteran that just ran to the recruiter and said, hey, I want to go fight ISIS, or that ideology. I was already in on September 11th, so I was joining for college money and a future and a career. So yeah, man, I went and I joined as a combat medic in the Army, and
where were you stationed at?
My first after I graduated medical school, my first duty station was Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Oh wow!
So I don't know if you've ever been to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the country.
It is a beautiful part of the country.
Yeah.
Those folks that are out there in Bossier City that are listening, we love you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Leesville.
Yeah.
DeRidder. I've spent 2.5 years right there at Fort Polk, but. My drill sergeant, when I got my orders at when I was graduating medical school, said, "I'm sorry."
He knew what he was. Saying.
So my first duty station was Fort Polk. Then I PCS to Fort Carson, Colorado, and my third and last duty station was here at Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston.
So let's talk about So whenever you got hit with the circumstance, so you go into like a life choice. Let's talk about life choices here for a second. So you go into a life choice and you're faced with this critical thinking component. You got decision making component. You feel the pressure of making the right choice. Right. You're talking about at 18 years old, going and picking a school, going and playing a sport because that was the career path you chose.
Sure.
That door shuts.
Yep.
You join the military. Join the military because you want to have some options and some choices, and you felt like you need some help. And the military does that. They provide a framework for you to have a quasi-successful life, right? They provide the framework.
For sure.
However, you're kind of chewed up and spit out of it, right? When I say not you, I'm talking about folks who join the military and then get out. Sometimes what ends up happening is it's a very clearly laid path for you to get to where you want to go.
Right.
For you, what I heard was you got exposed to kind of a generation-changing event on September 11th.
For sure.
2001.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you were already, you almost like, okay, I think this is the career path I want to go. Now with this event, it's like the perfect sequence of events that forced you to make a difficult decision. And that difficult decision is, what in the world are you going to stay in?
Yeah.
Are you going to get out? What are you going to do? So how did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I mean, I ended up doing 8 years and got out, but the decision making for me was fortunately, and I say this all the time, the military set me up for success by choosing a career path that I could use in the civilian world. So, being a combat medic, going to the physical therapy program, completing all of those courses allowed me to get out, make a good living, and still work with the military, because I stayed on and worked as a civilian at BAMC and the CFI. So, I just transitioned right into a civilian type job, and, it worked for me. I used the military to set myself up for future success, where I think a lot of times people join just to join and don't really think about the job that they're signing up for and how that's going to impact them once they transition.
So being able to recognize, I've heard it described as beginning with the end in mind in that way.
Right,
So what we call that knucklehead is we just call that gets and wins. Because you may not have a clear pathway forward, you know how you want to end up.
Right.
But that it doesn't mean that you can predict what steps 1 through 4 are going to be.
Yeah, well, and, even when I was at Northern Illinois, I was pre-physical therapy, so I knew what I wanted to do. It's just,
pathway to get there.
Yeah, I made some knucklehead decisions along the way that led me to join the Army and, see the world, and, September 11th, and then, here I am, on a deployment, and then back, and then going to physical therapy school, and then, really what transpired for me to set myself up to do hero sports is once, I could see the back end of war and how that affected the guys physically, emotionally.
When you say back end of war, but let's be descriptive here for a second, because people are going to be listening to this.
Yeah, for sure.
When you say the back end of war, you're talking about, it sounds good whenever you're on television to talk about how this country did something. However, what that truly means is people's lives are about ready to be changed, because there's people who are there who are going to fight, and there's people who are going to be sent there to do that fighting.